You did what? I heard my own voice crack through the phone, my chest tightening with a panic I could not contain. My mother laughed on the other end of the line, that dismissive chuckle she always used when she thought I was being dramatic. Relax, Sophia. We gave your spare key to Isabella. She needed a reliable car, and yours was just sitting there in the parking lot. I stood in the empty parking spot where my brand new Toyota Camry had been sitting just 12 hours ago. The concrete was still damp from the morning rain, typical Seattle weather, and I could see the faint tire marks where someone had backed out quickly, carelessly. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, and my hands were shaking as I gripped the phone. Mom, that car is in my name. I have been making payments on it for 3 months. You cannot just give someone my keys without asking me first. She is your sister, my mother said, as if that explained everything. Family helps family. You know, Isabella has been going through a hard time since her divorce. She needed transportation to get to her new job, and you have that nice new car just sitting there. I closed my eyes and tried to breathe. Isabella. Of course it was Isabella, my older sister who had crashed 4 cars in the last 5 years. My sister, who had totaled our father's truck running a red light because she was changing the radio station, who had wrapped her ex-husband's sedan around a telephone pole after drinking at a party and swearing she was fine to drive, who had driven her own leased vehicle into a ditch because she was texting and forgot the road curved, who had rear-ended a school bus, thankfully empty, because she was applying mascara at a stoplight. Mom, Isabella has destroyed every car she has ever touched. She has the worst driving record of anyone I know. That is not fair, Sophia. Those were accidents. Anyone can have an accident. 4 accidents in 5 years is not bad luck. It is a pattern. It is negligence. And now you have given her my car without even telling me. My mother's voice hardened, taking on that edge I knew so well. You have always been jealous of your sister. Ever since you were children, you could not stand to see her have anything nice. You always had to compete with her. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Me, jealous of Isabella. I had worked 2 jobs through college while she dropped out, after 1 semester, to pursue a modeling career that never materialized. I had saved for years to afford the down payment on this car while she burned through 3 marriages and twice as many credit cards. I had built my life carefully, brick by brick, while she demolished everything in her path and expected someone else to clean up the rubble. Mom, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Where did Isabella take my car? I do not know exactly. Probably to work. She said something about a new position at a salon in Bellevue. You should be happy for her, Sophia. She is finally getting her life together. When did she take it? Last night, around 11. Your father met her at your apartment complex and ate her the spare key. We thought you would be asleep and we did not want to wake you. We were trying to be considerate. They had come to my apartment in the middle of the night and handed over my property without even knocking on my door to ask permission. The betrayal of it settled into my bones like ice water, spreading through my entire body until I felt numb. Mom, I am going to give you a minute to understand what you have done. You and Dad came to my home, gave away my car without my permission, and did not even tell me until I called in a panic because I thought it had been stolen. It was not stolen, Sophia. It is with family. That is completely different. It was taken without my consent. That is the definition of stolen. My mother scoffed, and I could picture her rolling her eyes. You are being ridiculous and dramatic as usual. Your sister will bring it back when she is done with it. A week, maybe 2 at most. When she is done with it, it is not a library book, Mom. It is a $28,000 vehicle that I am still paying off. I have car payments. I have insurance. I need that car to get to work. Money, money, money. That is all you ever think about, Sophia. Family comes before money. Family comes before everything. I felt something shift inside me. A wall I had spent 32 years building brick by careful brick to protect myself from the reality of who my family actually was. And in that moment, standing in an empty parking space with the Seattle morning traffic rushing past and the cold October air biting at my cheeks, I felt the first crack appear in that wall. All right, I said quietly. Just give me a minute. I hung up before she could respond. My name is Sophia, and I am 32 years old. I work as an operations manager at Pacific Tech Supplies, a mid-sized tech supply company on the east side of Seattle, Washington. I have lived in this city my entire life, watched it grow and change around me while I tried desperately to grow and change myself into someone my family might finally respect. I stood in that empty parking spot for a long moment staring at my phone. Then I opened my contacts, scrolled past my mother's name, past my father's, past Isabella, and found the number I thought I would actually dial. I called the police. The officer who arrived was a woman about my age with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that immediately put me at ease. Her name was Officer Ramirez, and she listened to my story with the patience of someone who had heard variations of it 100 times before, but still gave each case her full attention. "So, let me make sure I understand the situation," she said, her pen poised over her notepad. "Your parents entered your apartment complex last night, gave your spare key to your sister, and she drove away in your vehicle without your knowledge or consent. That is correct. And you are the sole owner of this vehicle? Your name is on the title and registration, not anyone else's?" "Yes, I bought it 3 months ago from a dealership in Bellevue. I still have all the paperwork inside my apartment." Officer Ramirez nodded and made a note. "And you did not give anyone permission to take your car? Not your parents, not your sister, not anyone?" "No, I did not. I even know it was gone until I walked outside this morning to go to work. I thought it had been stolen by a stranger. I never imagined my own family would do something like this." She wrote something else in her notepad, then looked up at me with a serious expression. "I have to ask you this directly, and I need you to think carefully before you answer. Are you certain you want to file a report? Once this is in the system, it is in the system. Your sister will be flagged for vehicle theft, and that is not something that can be easily undone." I thought about my mother's voice on the phone, that condescending laugh. I thought about all the times I had covered for Isabella, made excuses for her, cleaned up her messes because that was what good sisters did. I thought about the car payments I would still owe, even if Isabella crashed this vehicle, like she had crashed all the others. I thought about the years of being treated like the backup plan while Isabella was the star. "I am certain." Officer Ramirez nodded, her expression professional but not unkind. "All right, I'm going to start filling out the official report. This will take a few minutes." As she worked, my phone buzzed with an incoming call from my father. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call from my mother. Voicemail again. Then a text message from Isabella herself, the first communication I had received from her in months. "Heard you are freaking out about the car. Chill out. I am just borrowing it for the week. I will bring it back on Sunday. Stop being so dramatic." I showed the text to Officer Ramirez, who raised an eyebrow as she read it. She texted, "You," admitting she has the car. Apparently she thinks this is just a misunderstanding. She thinks I'm overreacting. Well, this will make things easier from an evidentiary standpoint. Officer Ramirez took a photo of my screen with her own phone. "I'm going to enter this into the system now. Your vehicle will be flagged as stolen, and any officer who runs the plates will be alerted immediately. If your sister is driving it, she will be stopped." Part of me expected to feel guilty. Part of me expected the familiar wave of anxiety that always came when I did something that might upset my family. That sick feeling in my stomach that had controlled my decisions for as long as I could remember. But instead, I felt something else entirely. Something that felt almost like relief, like setting down a heavy bag I had been carrying for miles without realizing how much it weighed. My phone rang again. This time it was Isabella calling directly, and after a moment of hesitation, I answered. "Sophia, what the hell is wrong with you?" My sister's voice was sharp, with annoyance, the same tone she used when anyone dared to inconvenience her. Mom said, "You were acting crazy about the car. It is just a car. I needed it for work, and you were not using it in the middle of the night. You took my car without asking me, Isabella. You did not call. You did not text. You just took it." I did ask. I asked Mom and Dad, and they said it would be fine. They said you would understand because you are always so understanding about everything. "They do not own my car, Isabella. They cannot give permission for something that is not theirs to give." "God, you are so uptight. This is exactly why nobody likes you. You know that you are always so obsessed with rules and fairness and making sure everything is exactly right. Meanwhile, I am actually trying to get my life together, and you cannot even let me borrow a stupid car for 1 week. Officer Ramirez was watching me with a carefully neutral expression. I realized she could probably hear every word my sister was saying through the phone. Isabella, where are you right now? None of your business. I will bring the car back when I am ready, and not a minute before. That car is currently registered as stolen with the Seattle Police Department. If you are driving it and you get pulled over for any reason, you will be arrested on the spot. There was a pause. Then Isabella laughed. That same dismissive sound a mother always made. You are bluffing. You would never actually call the cops on your own sister. You do not have the guts. I already did. The officer is standing right next to me as we speak. The line went silent. I could almost hear the gears turning in my sister's head as she tried to calculate whether I was telling the truth or running some kind of elaborate bluff. You are lying. I am not. Another pause stretched between us, longer this time. Then Isabella's voice changed, becoming harder and uglier than I had ever heard it. You are such a Sophia. You know that you have always been jealous of me, and now you are trying to ruin my life because I finally have a chance at something good. You cannot stand to see me succeed. I am trying to get my car back. That is all I want. This is not about the car, and you know it. This is about you wanting to control everything. You cannot stand that Mom and Dad love me more than you. You have always resented that. I felt the words land, felt them try to burrow into the soft places where old wounds still festered. But something had changed this morning. Something had shifted when I saw that empty parking space and realized my family had violated my trust so casually, so completely, without even a moment of hesitation or guilt. Isabella, I do not care if Mom and Dad love you more. I stopped caring about that years ago. I care that you stole my car. I did not steal it. They gave me the key. That is not stealing, a key they had no right to give. Look, I do not want to argue with you about semantics. Just bring the car back to my apartment, and we can sort this out without police involvement. No, I need it for work. You can take the bus or get a ride or something. Figure it out. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. All right then, I will see you when the police find you. I hung up before she could respond. Officer Ramirez was still watching me, her notepad closed now. She is not going to bring it back voluntarily, is she? No, she thinks I am bluffing. She thinks I will back down like I always do. We will put out a bulletin with the vehicle description with the make, model, color, and plate number. It should not take long to locate. Seattle is a big city, but there are only so many places to hide. I nodded, feeling strangely calm now that the decision had been made. What happens when you find her depends on the circumstances. If she is driving, she will be pulled over and detained. If the vehicle is parked somewhere, we will impound it and notify you. Either way, she will have to answer for taking your property without permission. The call came 4 hours later. I was sitting at my desk at Pacific Tech Supplies, trying to focus on inventory reports while my phone sat silent beside me. My coworker, Lisa, had noticed something was wrong the moment I walked in that morning, and she had brought me coffee without asking, which was more kindness than my actual family had shown me in years. You look like someone ran over your dog, she had said. What happened? Family drama. I do not want to talk about it yet. She had nodded and given my shoulder a sympathetic squeeze before returning to her own desk. Lisa understood boundaries. She understood that sometimes people needed space to process things before they were ready to share. My family had never understood that about me. When my phone finally rang and I saw Officer Ramirez's number, I stood up so fast I knocked over the coffee cup, sending lukewarm liquid spreading across my desk. Sophia, this is Officer Ramirez. We found your vehicle. Where is it? Is Isabella with it? There was a pause that told me everything I needed to know before she even spoke. The car is at an impound lot on the west side of the city. It was abandoned in a no parking zone about 3 hours ago. Looks like your sister ditched it when she realized we were actively looking for it. What condition is it in? Another pause. Longer this time. You should probably come see it yourself. I can meet you there in about an hour if that works for your schedule. I told my supervisor I had a family emergency, which was technically true, and borrowed Lisa's car to drive across town to the impound lot. Officer Ramirez was already there when I arrived, standing next to what had once been my pristine 3-month-old Toyota Camry. The front bumper was dented and scraped like someone had rear-ended another vehicle at low speed and then kept driving. The driver's side mirror was cracked almost in half, hanging at an awkward angle. There were long scratches along the passenger door that looked deliberate, like someone had keyed the paint. And the back window had a crack running diagonally from corner to corner, a spiderweb of damage that must have come from some kind of impact. "What happened?" I heard myself ask, my voice sounding far away and disconnected from my body. Hard to say for certain without more investigation. The damage to the bumper is consistent with a minor collision. The scratches could be vandalism or could have happened in a tight parking situation. As for the window, your guess is as good as mine. I walked around the car slowly, cataloging every scrape, every dent, every sign of my sister's carelessness branded permanently into the metal. This car had been perfect when I drove it off the lot. I had washed it every weekend, vacuumed the interior, kept an air freshener hanging from the mirror because I liked the way it made the car smell like lavender. I had treated it with care because it represented years of saving and sacrifice. Now it looked like something recovered from a demolition derby. "We found fast food wrappers all over the interior," Officer Ramirez continued. "And there is some kind of stain on the back seat that I would strongly recommend having professionally cleaned. Could be motor oil, could be something else. Either way, it is not pretty." My phone rang. My mother's number flashed on the screen. I answered it this time, because I wanted her to hear exactly how angry I was. "Sophia, Isabella just called me crying hysterically. She said the police are after her because you filed some kind of report. Please tell me this is all a big misunderstanding." "It is not a misunderstanding, Mom. She stole my car." "Stole is a very strong word," my mother said, her voice tight with the kind of controlled anger she used when she was trying not to explode. "She borrowed it. There is a difference. She took it without my permission, drove it for less than 24 hours, and already damaged it severely. I am standing in an impound lot right now looking at the wreck she made of my brand new car. The bumper is dented, the mirror is cracked, the back window has a huge crack in it, and the interior looks like a garbage dump. Damaged it?" "What do you mean damaged?" Isabella did not mention anything about damage. Of course she did not. When has Isabella ever taken responsibility for anything she has done? She probably did not even notice she hit something. She was probably on her phone or putting on makeup or doing any of the 100 things she does instead of actually watching the road. My mother was silent for a moment and I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. When she spoke again, her voice had shifted into a different gear, the one she used when she was trying to manipulate me into feeling guilty. "Well, even if there was some minor damage, it was probably an accident. You know, Isabella has always had bad luck with cars. That does not mean she deserves to be treated like a criminal by her own sister. Bad luck. Mom, she has destroyed 4 vehicles in 5 years. That is not luck. That is a pattern of reckless behavior that you and Dad have enabled. Every single time, by paying her legal fees and buying her new cars and making excuses for her. We did what any good parents would do. We supported our daughter when she was struggling. And what about me? What about when I was struggling? When I was working 2 jobs to pay for college while Isabella dropped out and you paid for her apartment? When I was saving every penny for years to buy this car while you bought Isabella 3 different vehicles that she wrecked? When did you ever support me the way you support her? The words came out before I could stop them. Years of resentment finally finding their voice. I had never said any of this out loud before, had never allowed myself to acknowledge how unfair the disparity had always been. But standing in that impound lot, staring at the ruins of something I had worked so hard for, I could not keep quiet anymore. "You never needed help, Sophia. You were always so capable, so independent. Isabella needed more support because she struggled more. That is just the reality of having children with different needs or different standards, because from where I am standing, it looks like you held me to a higher standard my entire life while letting Isabella get away with murder. That is not true, and you know it. It is absolutely true. And the proof is that I thought it was perfectly acceptable to give away my car in the middle of the night without even asking me. You would never have done that to Isabella. You would never have assumed she would just be fine with it. Officer Ramirez was watching me with a carefully neutral expression, pretending to examine the damage to my car while I unloaded years of family dysfunction over the phone. I appreciated her discretion. Sophia, I think you are overreacting because you are upset. Why do not you take some time to calm down, and then we can talk about this like reasonable adults? I am perfectly calm, Mom. I have never been calmer in my life. And here is what is going to happen. Isabella is going to face consequences for stealing my car. Real consequences from the legal system, because clearly our family is incapable of holding her accountable for anything. You cannot be serious. You are going to let the despairing Dodd police arrest your own sister over a car. She stole my property and destroyed it. Those are her choices, not mine. I am just responding appropriately. This will tear the family apart, Sophia. Is that what you want? I looked at my damaged car, at the dents and scratches and cracks that represented everything wrong with how my family had always treated me, and I realized something important. The family had already been broken for years. I was just the only one who had been, pretending otherwise. What I want is for my sister to face the consequences of her actions. Something you and Dad should have enforced years ago. Maybe if you had actually parented her instead of enabling her, we would not be in this situation. My mother gasped like I had slapped her. How dare you speak to me that way after everything we have? Done for you? What exactly have you done for me, Mom? Paid for my college? No, I did that myself. Helped me buy my car. No, I saved for years on my own, supported me emotionally. No, you were too busy cleaning up Isabella's messes to notice I even existed. The only thing you have ever done for me is criticize me for not being more understanding. NG of my sister's problems. There was a long silence. Then my mother said very quietly, I think you need to take some time and reflect on what you are doing to this family. I think you need to do the same. I hung up and blocked her number before she could call back. Officer Ramirez cleared her throat. That sounded like a difficult conversation. You have no idea. Actually, I might have some idea. These situations are more common than you would think. Family members taking property without permission, assuming forgiveness will be automatic. It rarely ends well. I looked at her. This stranger who had shown me more respect in one morning than my family had shown me in 32 years. How do I proceed with pressing charges? First, we need to document all the damage to your vehicle. Then, you will need to give a formal statement at the station. After that, the prosecutor's office will decide how to proceed based on the evidence. What kind of charges could she face? Unauthorized use of a motor vehicle is a misdemeanor in Washington. Given the damage, there could be additional charges related to property destruction, but I should warn you, family cases like this can get complicated. Are you sure you want to go? Through with it? I looked at my ruined car one more time. I have never been more sure of anything in my life. The insurance adjuster arrived 2 days later, a middle-aged man named Harold, who walked around my battered car with a clipboard and a sympathetic expression that suggested he had seen this kind of thing before. I had retrieved the car from the impound lot and paid the fees myself, another expense I could not afford, but could not avoid. So, this was a theft by a family member? Harold asked, making notes on his form. My sister, she took the spare key from my parents and drove off with it in the middle of the night without my knowledge or consent. And you filed a police report documenting the theft? Yes, I have the case number right here. I handed him the paperwork Officer Ramirez had given me. Harold nodded and continued his inspection, crouching down to examine the damage to the front bumper more closely. This dent is pretty significant. Looks like she hit something at a decent speed and kept driving. The paint transfer here suggests it was another vehicle, probably a darker color. She did not mention hitting anything when she talked to my mother, but then again, she probably did not even notice. That happens more often than you would think. He moved around to the side of the car, running his fingers along the scratches on the passenger door. These look deliberate. See how they are all the same depth and angle? Someone keyed this car. Keyed it? Why would someone key my car? Hard to say. Could have been vandalism in whatever parking lot she left it in. Could have been someone with a grudge against your sister. Could have been your sister herself, for all we know. I stared at the scratches, a sick feeling settling in my stomach. The idea that Isabella might have deliberately damaged my car out of spite was almost too much to process. But then again, was it really that surprising? She had always been vindictive when she did not get her way. Harold moved to the back of the car and examined the cracked window. This is interesting. See how the crack radiates. From this point here, something hit the window from the inside, not the outside. Like someone threw something against it from the back seat. From the inside. That is what the pattern suggests. Could have been an accident. Someone tossing a bag and hitting it harder than intended. Or could have been intentional. Either way, it is going to need to be replaced. He spent another 20 minutes documenting everything, taking photos, and making notes. When he was finished, he turned to me with an expression that was almost hopeful. Here is the good news. Your comprehensive coverage should handle most of this. Given that you have a police report documenting the theft, we can process this as a stolen vehicle recovery claim. What does that mean exactly? It means we will cover the repairs minus your deductible given the extent of the damage. You might even qualify for a total loss payout if the repair costs exceed a certain percentage of the vehicle's current value. A total loss? You mean they would pay me for the whole car? Potentially. I will have to run the numbers and consult with our assessment team, but this is a fairly new vehicle with significant damage to multiple systems. It is definitely possible. I felt a small flicker of hope for the first time since I had discovered my car missing. How long will that take? I should have an answer for you within a week. In the meantime, document any additional damage you find and keep copies of all your communications with the police. After Harold left, I sat in my damaged car and tried to process everything that had happened in the past 48 hours. My phone buzzed with a voicemail notification, and against my better judgment, I checked it. Isabella's voice filled my ear, slurred and angry, like she had been drinking. So, you actually did it? You actually called the cops on your own sister. I hope you are happy now. You selfish mom and dad are devastated. They cannot believe you would do this to the family. And for what? A stupid car. You always cared more about things than people, Sophia. That is why you were going to die alone. You know that. Nobody wants to be with someone as cold as you. I saved the voicemail. Officer Ramirez had told me to document everything, and this seemed like exactly the kind of thing that should be documented. There was another message, this one from my father. His voice was quieter than my mother's had been, more disappointed than angry, which somehow felt worse. Sophia, this is your father. Your mother told me about your conversation. I understand you are upset about the car, but I think you are overreacting to the situation. Isabella made a mistake, but she is still your sister. Family forgives family. That is how it has always worked in this family. I think you should drop the charges and apologize to your mother for the things you said. She is very hurt, and she did not deserve to be spoken to that way. I deleted that one without saving it. If my father wanted to pretend that enabling Isabella's behavior for decades was somehow equivalent to family loyalty, that was his choice, but I was done pretending along with him. The third message was from an unknown number, and when I played it, I heard Isabella's voice again, but different. This time, laughing, almost gleeful. Hey, Sophia, guess what? I found another car to use. One of my friends is letting me borrow hers, so you can have your precious Toyota back. What is left of it anyway? Hope you enjoy driving around in a car that nobody wants, just like you. Have a great life, sister. She hung up, still laughing. I sat in my damaged car in the parking lot of my apartment complex, surrounded by evidence of my sister's carelessness and my family's betrayal. And I realized something important. I had spent my entire life trying to earn the love and respect of people who were incapable of giving it. I had worked hard, played by the rules, been the responsible one, the dependable one, the one who always cleaned up the messes and made everything okay for everyone else. And what had it gotten me? A stolen car, a pile of repair bills, and a family that blamed me for their own failures. Something in me hardened that day. Not in a bitter way, but in a protective way, like a callus forming over a wound that had been rubbed raw for too long. I called Officer Ramirez the next morning. "I want to proceed with pressing charges," I said. "Whatever the maximum is for what she did, I want to pursue it fully. Are you certain? Once we move forward with formal charges, it becomes very difficult to undo. The prosecutor's office will take over and it will be out of your hands. I am certain." My sister left. Kill me a voicemail last night laughing about what she did. She does not think there will be any consequences. I want to prove her wrong. All right, I will need you to come down to the station and give a formal statement to a detective. Can you make it tomorrow? Morning around 9? I will be there. The police station was cold and institutional, with fluorescent lights that buzzed overhead and chairs in the waiting area that were clearly designed for function rather than comfort. Officer Ramirez met me in the lobby and led me through a maze of hallways to a small interview room where a detective was already waiting. His name was Detective Lopez, and he was a patient man with silver at his temples and a calm voice that made me feel like I was having a conversati on with a friend rather than giving an official statement. I told him everything: the discovery of the empty parking space, the phone call with my mother, the dismissive texts from Isabella, the damage to the car, the voicemail she had left afterward. "Your sister has quite a history with vehicles," he said, reviewing the notes he had been taking. 4 totaled cars in 5 years. 3 of them were accidents she caused through reckless driving. 1 was the result of a DUI. She has had her license suspended twice, and I am honestly surprised she is even legally allowed to drive at this point. And your parents have enabled this behavior throughout. They have paid for her lawyers every single time. They have covered her insurance premiums when they got too high for her to afford. They have replaced her cars when she destroyed them, sometimes buying her newer and nicer vehicles than the ones she wrecked. They have never held her accountable for anything, but they have not done the same for you. I laughed, a bitter sound that surprised me with its intensity. No, I bought my first car at 19 with money I saved from working 2 jobs while going to school full-time. I paid for my own college, my own apartment, my own everything. They always said I did not. I need help because I was so capable and independent. But Isabella needed help because she was struggling. That was always the excuse. Detective Lopez nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. It sounds like a very difficult family dynamic. It has been, but I am done with it now. I am done making excuses for her and covering for her and pretending that everything is fine when it clearly is not. After the statement was complete, Detective Lopez explained what would happen next. Isabella would be officially charged with unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, which was a first-degree misdemeanor in Washington. Given the damage to the car and the evidence of her previous driving incidents, there was a possibility of additional charges related to property destruction and vandalism. "Will she go to jail?" I asked. "Unlikely for a first offense of this nature, but she will probably face significant fines, mandatory probation, and a suspended license. And if she violates the terms of her probation or comes near your property again, then yes, jail becomes a very real possibility." I nodded. Part of me had hoped for something more severe, something that would truly get through to Isabella that her actions had consequences. But another part of me just wanted this nightmare to be over. "There is one more thing," Detective Lopez said, flipping through some papers on his desk. "We ran a background check on your sister as part of the investigation. Standard procedure. Did you know she has outstanding warrants in 2 other counties?" I stared at him, genuinely shocked. "What kind of warrants?" "Failure to appear on traffic citations. 1 in King County, 1 in Snohomish County. Relatively minor stuff on their own, but it means she is already in the system. When we locate her and bring her in on your charges, she will also have to answer for those outstanding warrants." I thought about Isabella's laughing voicemail, her absolute confidence that she had gotten away with something yet again. She had no idea what was coming for her. What happens when you find her? We will take her into custody, process her on all the outstanding charges, and hold her until she can post bail or see a judge. Given the multiple jurisdictions involved, it could take a few days to sort everything out. Good, I said, and I meant it. The call from the insurance company came 5 days later, just as Harold had promised. Good news, he said, his voice cheerful on the other end of the line. Based on our comprehensive assessment, the damage to your vehicle exceeds 70% of its current market value. You qualify for a total loss payout. I set down the coffee cup I had been holding, my heart suddenly racing. What does that mean exactly? In terms of numbers? It means we will pay you the full market value of your vehicle, minus your deductible. Given that your car is only 3 months old and was in excellent condition prior to the theft, that should be very close to what you originally paid for it. And what happens to the car after that? We take possession of it and sell it for salvage. You will need to sign over the title as part of the process, but once all the paperwork is completed, you will receive a check for approximately $26,000. I did the math in my head. My car had cost $28,000 minus the $500 deductible. I would be getting back almost everything I had invested, and I could use that money to buy a new car, something that my sister had never touched, that my parents had no keys to. That was entirely and completely mine. How do I proceed? I asked. Harold walked me through the paperwork, promised to send everything via email that afternoon, and told me the check would arrive within 2 weeks of receiving my signed documents. After I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table and stared at the wall for a long time, trying to process this unexpected turn of events. This was not how I had expected things to go. I had imagined a prolonged battle with the insurance company, arguments about coverage and liability, and whether family theft really counted as theft. Instead, they had assessed the damage, confirmed the circumstances, and agreed to make me whole. It felt almost too good to be true, like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop and ruin everything. But days passed, and no shoe dropped. My sister was located in King County 2 weeks after the initial theft, pulled over for a routine traffic stop that quickly became much more complicated when the officer ran her license and discovered the outstanding warrants. She was taken into custody immediately and held without bail until her various legal matters could be sorted out. She spent 4 nights in the county jail before her friend Jessica scraped together enough money to post bond. The photos that circulated on social media afterward showed a very different Isabella than the one I was used to seeing. Her hair was unwashed and stringy, her face bare of makeup and showing every one of her 35 years, her eyes red from what might have been crying or might have been exhaustion. She looked scared and small, and finally like someone who understood that her actions had consequences. My mother called me from my father's phone, which I had not yet blocked. Sophia, please, your sister is falling apart. She has court dates in 3 different counties now. She could lose her license permanently. Is that really what you want? Is that really the outcome you were hoping for? What I want, I said, keeping my voice perfectly calm, is for my sister to face the consequences of her actions. Something you and Dad should have enforced years ago when the problems first started. We did the best we could. Isabella has always been difficult. She has always needed more support than you. Isabella has always been enabled. There is a significant difference, and now that enabling has led her to a place where she is facing actual legal consequences for the first time in her life, maybe that will finally be the wake-up call she needs. My mother started crying. Those theatrical sobs that had always worked on me when I was younger, that had always made me feel guilty for having feelings of my own. How can you be so cold? She is your sister. She is family. Does that mean nothing to you anymore? Family does not steal from each other, Mom. Family does not trash each other's property and then laugh about it on voicemail. Family does not enable destruction for decades and then blame the victim for finally standing up for themselves. You want to talk about what family means? Maybe you should start by examining what kind of family you and Dad have created. That is a terrible thing to say. We have always tried our best for both of you. Your best was not good enough, and I am done pretending that it was. I hung up and blocked my father's number too. The court date came 3 months after the theft on a cold November morning that perfectly matched my mood. I had not spoken to anyone in my family since blocking their numbers, had not responded to the letters they sent or the messages they left through mutual relatives. I had built a wall around my life, solid and strong, and I was not letting anyone through who had not earned the right to be there. Detective Lopez had called me the week before to explain what would happen at the hearing. Isabella was facing multiple charges now, not just the unauthorized use of my vehicle. The outstanding warrants had been consolidated into a single case, and she was being tried for a pattern of traffic violations, failure to appear on multiple court dates, driving with a suspended license, and property damage. The prosecutor was pushing for jail time. "You do not have to attend the hearing," he said. "You have already given your statement, and the evidence speaks for itself, but you have the right to be there if you want to see how it plays out." I wanted to see it. I needed to see it. The King County Courthouse was a large stone building that felt appropriately serious for the occasion. I found a seat in the gallery near the back and watched as the room slowly filled with lawyers, defendants waiting for their own cases, observers like myself. My parents arrived about 10 minutes before Isabella's case was scheduled to be called. My mother wearing a black dress that made her look like she was attending a funeral. My father in a suit I had never seen him wear before. They spotted me immediately. My mother's face went through several emotions in rapid succession. Surprise that I was there. Hope that my presence meant reconciliation. Anger when she saw my closed expression. And finally resignation when I did not acknowledge her at all. She started to move toward me, but my father put a hand on her arm and shook his head. They sat on the opposite side of the gallery, as far from me as they could get, while still being in the same room. Isabella was brought in by a bailiff, wearing an orange jumpsuit. With her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, she looked smaller than I remembered, diminished somehow, like the past 3 months had taken something fundamental out of her. She did not look in my direction at all. The judge was a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair, a non-nonsense demeanor that suggested she had seen every excuse and manipulation in the book, and was no longer impressed by any of them. She read the charges aloud in a clear, deliberate voice: unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, failure to appear on 3 separate traffic citations, driving with a suspended license, destruction of property, valued at over $1,000. The list seemed to go on forever. "How does the defendant plead?" the judge asked when she had finished. Isabella's lawyer, a Herodal-looking public defender who kept shuffling through papers like he was not entirely sure which case he was handling, leaned over and whispered something in her ear. Isabella listened, then looked at my parents, then finally briefly at me. Our eyes met across the courtroom for just a moment, and I saw something in her expression that might have been shame or might have been anger. It was hard to tell. "Guilty, Your Honor," she said quietly. The sentencing portion of the hearing took about 20 minutes. The judge reviewed Isabella's driving record in exhaustive detail, noting each incident and its outcome. She listened to the public defender argue for leniency, citing Isabella's difficult personal circumstances, her recent divorce, her willingness to plead guilty and accept responsibility. Then she looked at Isabella directly, and her expression was not sympathetic. "Miss, I have reviewed your file extensively, and what I see is a consistent pattern of disregard for the law, for other people's property, and for the consequences of your actions. You have been given multiple chances to correct your behavior over the years. You have been offered plea deals and reduced sentences and opportunities to make things right. And you have squandered every single one of those opportunities. At some point, the court has to send a message that this kind of behavior will not be tolerated." My mother made a small sound, from across the room like a sob being strangled before it could escape. "I am sentencing you to 90 days in county jail with 60 days suspended pending successful completion of probation. You will serve 30 days beginning immediately following your release. You will be on supervised probation for 2 years. Your driver's license is hereby revoked indefinitely, and you may petition for reinstatement after 5 years. If you have demonstrated sustained compliance with all court requirements, you are ordered to pay restitution to the victim in the amount of $3,000, and you are prohibited from contacting the victim in any way, directly or indirectly. Do you understand these terms?" Isabella nodded, her face very pale. Yes, Your Honor. Additionally, any violation of these probation terms will result in the immediate imposition of the suspended sentence, plus any new charges that may apply. This is your last chance, miss. I strongly suggest you take it seriously. I understand, Your Honor. The bailiff led Isabella away through a side door. She did not look back at my parents. She did not look at me. She just walked with her head down and her shoulders hunched, like someone who had finally realized that the world was not going to keep making exceptions for her. I sat in that courtroom and watched my sister disappear through the door, and I felt something I had not expected. Not satisfaction exactly, though there was certainly some of that. Not vindication, though that was present too. What I felt most strongly was relief, the kind of deep bone-level relief that comes when a weight you have been carrying for so long, you forgot it. It was there, finally lifts from your shoulders. My parents found me in the hallway. Outside the courtroom a few minutes later, I had been expecting them to approach, had steeled myself for whatever guilt trip or emotional manipulation they were about to deploy. But what I got instead was something I had never seen from either of them before. Genuine bewilderment. Sophia, my father said, his voice smaller and more uncertain than I had ever heard it. How did we get here? How did things go so wrong? I looked at him, really looked at him. This man who had snuck into my apartment complex in the middle of the night to give away my property. Who had enabled my sister's destruction for decades? Who had expected me to clean up messes I did not make and accept disrespect I did not deserve? You got here by treating me like I did not matter and treating Isabella like she could do no wrong. I said you got here by never holding anyone accountable for anything. You got here by deciding that my boundaries were less important than keeping the peace. My mother opened her mouth to respond, probably to argue or deflect or turn this into my fault somehow, but my father put a hand on her arm again, and she closed it. I think, he said slowly, that we made a lot of mistakes. I do not know how to fix them. I do not know either, I said honestly. And honestly, I am not sure I want to try right now. Maybe someday, but not today. I walked away before either of them could respond. My new car was waiting in the parking garage, a blue Honda Civic that I had bought with the insurance payout that no one in my family had ever sat in or touched or held a key to. I got in, started the engine, and drove away from the courthouse without looking back. The weeks that followed were a study in transformation, without the constant drama of my family draining my energy and demanding my attention. I found myself with time and emotional bandwidth I had not known I was missing. I started exercising again, joined a gym near my apartment, and went 3 times a week. I reconnected with friends I had neglected for years, people who had drifted away while I was busy managing my family's chaos. I started living my life for myself, maybe for the first time ever. My coworker Lisa noticed the change immediately. You seem different lately, she said one afternoon in the break room. Lighter somehow, like you finally put down something heavy you were carrying. That is exactly what happened, I said. I stopped carrying weight that was not mine to carry. She nodded like she understood. And maybe she did. Everyone has something they have been holding on to for too long. The restitution check from Isabella arrived about 2 months after the trial. A money order for $3,000, that must have cost her. Everything she had saved. I deposited it into my savings account without ceremony. Money that would go toward building my future instead of cleaning up someone else's past. A year passed. Isabella completed her 30 days in jail and was released into her probation period. According to cousins who still talk to both of us, she was working at a fast food restaurant and living in a small apartment with a roommate, unable to drive and completely dependent on public transportation and the kindness of friends. My parents had finally stopped enabling her, whether because they could not afford to anymore or because they had finally understood that their enabling was part of the problem. I did not know which, and I did not particularly care. I had been promoted at Pacific Tech Supplies, moved into a nicer apartment on the north side of Seattle, and started dating a man named Alex, who worked in healthcare administration. He was kind and patient and thoughtful, all the things my family had never been. When I told him about what had happened with Isabella and my parents in the car, he did not judge me or tell me I had overreacted. He just listened, and then he said, It sounds like you finally chose yourself. That is one of the hardest things a person can do. In the end, the consequences caught up with everyone who deserved them. Isabella struggled through her probation, working minimum wage jobs and taking the bus everywhere, finally experiencing what life was like when no one was there to rescue her from her own poor choices. My parents, humbled by watching their golden child face real accountability for the first time, gradually faded into a distant background presence in my life. They still sent birthday cards and holiday messages, but the relationship had fundamentally changed, and we all knew it. The family I had grown up in was gone, but I was not mourning it. I was relieved to finally be free of it, standing in my new apartment on a quiet Sunday morning, watching the Seattle skyline through windows that belonged to a life I had built, entirely on my own terms. I finally understood what this whole experience had really been about. It was never just about a car. It was about respect and boundaries and the fundamental question of whether I was going to keep letting people treat me like my needs did not matter. For 32 years, I had been the responsible one, the dependable one, the one who always absorbed the chaos and made everything okay for everyone else. And what had it gotten me? An empty parking space and a family that blamed me for noticing I had been robbed. But not anymore. Now I had a life that was mine, built on my own terms, protected by boundaries I was no longer afraid to enforce. The car was just the catalyst, the final straw that broke a pattern I should have broken years earlier, and while I would never be grateful for what Isabella did, I could acknowledge that her theft had given me something valuable in return. The clarity to finally walk away from people who had never deserved my loyalty in the first place. As I watched the morning lights spread across the city I had always called home, I realized that the revenge was complete, not because Isabella had suffered, though she had, not because my parents were sorry, though they might be, but because I had finally stopped waiting for permission to put myself first, and I had simply done it. That was the only revenge that ever really mattered. Added creative, in the quiet. Moments after the trial, I took up hiking in the nearby Cascade Mountains, finding solace in the misty trails and evergreen forests that reminded me of Washington's resilient spirit, much like my own emerging strength. I also joined a local book club, discussing stories of empowerment that mirrored my journey, connecting with women who had similar tales, of breaking free from toxic family dynamics. These new pursuits not only filled my days but also wove a network of supportive friends, turning Seattle's rainy days into opportunities for personal growth and reflection.